Hi, it's Mark from Eagle 4x4. Today we're going to do an updated video on how to install the electric roller shutter onto a brand new Ford Ranger Wildtrak. We're over at our friends at DV8 Works, who do some amazing conversions on these vehicles, and we're going to fit this electric roller shutter on for them. We've previously done a video on this, but some of the fixings have changed slightly. We've improved things. We're constantly trying to evolve the products. So we're going to do an updated video now, and this will talk you through step by step every part of the installation of this roller shutter onto this brand spanking new 2023 Ford Ranger Wildtrak, which is currently in the middle of being converted by DV8 Works. So keep with us and we'll show you how easy it is to install the electric ProRoll shutter from Eagle 4x4. You can buy these through our Ford Ranger dedicated website at nextgenranger.co.uk. We've got hundreds of products for the new Ranger on there, so please have a look at our site, take time to visit it, and if you've got any questions at all, we're always on the end of a phone, or you can contact us through social media. Just look up Eagle 4x4 and we can talk you through all of our products and hopefully get some more of these installation videos done. So I've got the roller shutter here. We're going to open up the box, have a look at what's inside, look at the fitting kit, put the shutter together, and then we're going to get it onto the truck, get it wired in, and get this all up and running. So we'll start off opening the box. This is how the cover comes to you, is in this box like this. So we're just going to, easiest thing to do here, just roll over the box gently and just cut these bands. And then just roll the box back over. And the box is a cassette style box, so just grab one end of it, lift it up, move that out of the way. And the first thing you see on top here is the lid that goes on top of the canister. So for now we're just going to pop that to one side, and we've got the side rails and some of the fixings that we're going to use to assemble the shutter. So I'm just going to pull apart these bits of plastic here. The first thing we're going to do, in here you've got a silver aluminium rail and a black, which looks like one of the slats from the shutter. We don't actually need these, so we're going to just discard these. I'm not sure why they're still included in the box, but we're not going to use them in the installation today, and neither will you need to. So we're going to pop those to one side. We've got our foam seal for the front, which we'll come to in a bit, and then we've got our two side rails. So we'll just pop those down here for now, like so. Just take that tape off. And then we're left with the main body of our canister. And then at one end, we've got the box that has all the bracketry and the nuts and bolts and everything that you need to actually clamp the cover onto the vehicle. We'll come to that in a second. So once we've got the side rails and the kit out, we're going to take the canister out. It's not too heavy, it's an easy one-person lift. So just put your hands either side there, and lift it up, and kick the box out of the way. And then we're just going to rest the canister down like that. And the first thing to do is take these protective foam pads off the end. The shutter is suspended in these to prevent damage during transit. Keeps them nice and protected. So we're just going to take those off. We're not going to use these again, so we can discard those. And you'll notice in the bottom of the box, you've also got your 4 drain pipes. These are the pipes that will take the water that goes into the canister and drain it out through the load bed, keeping your load bed nice and dry. So we don't need those just yet. So we'll pop those down there, take off this end here. And at the moment, you'll see that the shutter rolls freely. There's 2 pieces of white protective foam. It's important to get those out before you start assembling the shutter. Okay, so just pull the shutter out like this. The two pieces of foam will drop out. Very handy for kneeling on. There's a lot of kneeling in this job. I always put one under my knee, quite useful. So from that point then, we're going to attach the side rails. So just let the shutter rest like this. And we need to get our fitting kit. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to lay this kit out so you can see everything that's in there. So what I've got in front of me here is the box of fixings and everything that you need to complete this job. So I'll just run through what we've got in here. So starting off, we've got the wiring loom, and this is going to be connected to the battery and then plugged into your roller shutter. Very straightforward this is. That we've literally got two connections and a plug. So these will go on the battery. This will plug into the shutter. That's all the electrics you need. You don't need to be an auto electrician to do this. You can see there, very simple loom. Easy to route through the vehicle. So we'll go through that process, but yep, nothing to worry about there. We've got some bags of nuts and bolts. Everything's separated out for you. In here, hopefully you can see that, you've got a large silver Allen key, 4 black bolts, 4 silver washers. We're going to use those to connect the side rails to the main canister. And then we've got a packet here which has a little black Allen key in, some silver screws, and some black kind of caps, plastic caps and cups. And those are used to attach the cover onto the canister, so to cover up all the mechanism and everything. We've then got our T-nuts. These are slide-in T-nuts which go into the side rails, and they are used to clamp to fix the shutter onto the vehicle. Again, all of this I'm going to go through, but I just wanted to run through the kit here. We've got a packet with 4 Jubilee clips in. These are used to hold the drain pipes onto the canister and onto the side rails. In here, we've got our brackets. There's 6 brackets in here, and there's a little bag of nuts and bolts in there, which are affixed to the vehicle. And that's probably one of the first jobs that we're going to talk through with you. You've got a pack with 3 remote controls, 2 key fob style ones, which can attach to your keyring. You've got a spare one and one that you should keep with you. And then in here, we've got an extra, I'll just grab this out. We've got a 3rd controller here. And this one, using these sticky pads, this has just got a forward and backward button on it. I don't know if you can see that there. That is just an extra remote control that can be fixed using those sticky pads, either into your load bed, or you can fix it in the cab, wherever you wish. And that's just literally a forward and backward button, so that, say if you've got it fixed in the cab, and you might want to press that button before you get out of the vehicle, by the time you get round to the back of it, your shutter should be opened. We've got a 10mm spanner. You can never have too many 10mm spanners. This is used for the front brackets. And then lastly, we've got an instruction manual here. In all honesty, if you're watching this video, you're not going to need this instruction manual. This is very much a sort of universal instructions and doesn't necessarily apply to this particular vehicle. So I would suggest that you ditch this, but there is one piece of information that will be useful to you, and that's on the inside back cover. There's instructions on how to download the mobile phone app, because this shutter can be opened and closed using your mobile phone. It can be locked, you can turn the light on and off, and it's quite a nice little app. And there's a QR code here, and you can scan that to download the app, and then it gives you full instructions on how to pair it using Bluetooth to your phone. So that's the fitting kit, and now we can start the process of installing this shutter onto the vehicle. Well, we're going to assemble it first. Let's get the shutter assembled, and then we can start working on the vehicle. The first part of the assembly process is to attach the side rails to the canister. Quite a straightforward job. What I would do, sit the canister up like this, rest your rail on there, pop your little bit of foam under there. No, I'll actually put my foot under there. So what I do is I tend to put my foot under there just to keep this upright, pull a few slats worth of the shutter out, and the shutter locates onto these pins here. So what we're going to do is lift the shutter up, put the side rail onto it, give it a bit of a jiggle, and then that just slots into place. You'll know when it's in place. It sits down tight. It should protrude slightly out of the front of the canister here. It'll only fit in one place. So once you've got that on there, from our fitting kit here, we've got the bag which has got the silver Allen key in and the 4 bolts. So I'm just going to open that up. Probably should have done that before I put the rail on. I'm going to, underneath here, there are 2 holes that go through the lip of the canister into the side rail. I'm going to take a bolt and a washer, and we're going to pop 2 onto this side, and the other 2 are for the other side. So slide that up into there, grab the Allen key, and hopefully you can see that okay, and that will just go into a threaded hole. Just tighten that up. A bit fiddly. When you get so far, turn the Allen key round and then just give it a couple of cranks up. Make sure that's nice and tight. Okay, then we can rest that down, grab another bolt with a washer, pop it on the Allen key, and then just screw that straight into there. Nice and tight. And then once we've done that, once you've got the first rail on, it's a good idea just to check the shutter is rolling freely by hand. If for any reason the shutter is locked up, it's because the cogs underneath here have not meshed perfectly with the underside of the shutter. If that's the case, you may just have to take that rail off again and just make sure that when you put it on, it's running freely. So that one's perfect. So we're going to go over and do exactly the same on the other side. So both side rails now attached, shutter's running nice and free. So what we're going to do now is fit the canister lid on. You'll see you've got some rubber sticking out of the side here. What we do here, just pop the canister on like this, slide it forward, and then if I get the camera to come around here, I'll just show you what to do with this rubber. At the moment, all you need to do is kind of bend that down underneath there. Okay, and I'll do the same on the other side. And then what you'll find is that these holes should then all line up. So I'm going to go to my fitting kit. And in here, I've got the packet with the small black Allen key in and the 6 screws. There's usually a few spares in here, so if you've got more than 6, don't worry. The spares are quite useful. And then we've got our black plastic caps. What I'll do is I'll put these onto here, then you can actually see what we're looking at. So for each screw, you need a cup, a cap, and a screw. The screw goes into the cup, and then just line it up with these holes here using your little supplied Allen key, and then just screw those in. Okay, don't put the caps on until you've got all of them in place. Now what you might find is they need a little bit of jiggling around to line up. So what I do is just pop the Allen key in, give it a wiggle, helps line them up, pop your screw in, and then tighten it up. Just check that's lined up, give it a wiggle, pop the screw in. They don't need to be over tightened, just nip them up. And then for each one of these you've got a cap, and the cap just pops in. Just put it on loosely, press your thumb over it, and that just finishes the job off nicely so that you've got a nice tidy set of screws there. And obviously repeat that for the other side, and that's your canister lid fixed on. And then I'm going to show you what to do with this rubber here. So what this rubber is, I'll just explain it. Where this goes over the front of the load bed, this is quite a unique feature to our roller shutter that you don't see on other shutters. We've got this big rubber seal, and that drops down between the load bed and the cab. And that stops any water from running into this sort of vulnerable area, especially in these corners. You get a lot of wind driving water through the front of the load bed. And on most shutters, they don't have this rubber seal. And so water can find its way in between this front edge and the top of the load bed. There's usually a bit of a gap. What this does is it just literally covers it over. So it's a big flap, covers that gap over. Any water that hits this is then just going to run straight down between the cab and the load bed. So it's a really good feature of this cover. So get your screws on, and then we'll go through what to do with this extra bit here. Obviously, we're going to cut this off and basically peel that backing off the tape, stick it to the underside of this rail. So we've got our canister lid screwed in, so the canister is now secure. So you've just got to finish off this bit of rubber here that's poking out the edge. You'll see it's got double-sided tape on. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut it flush with the outside of this rail. Okay, so just a pair of scissors is the best thing. Just chop that rubber off there, and then just peel it down. Take off the backing, and then just stick that to the underside of that side rail. And obviously repeat the same process. So we've got it nice and flush with the edge of there. That seal is going to end up like that. You've got the weight of the canister holding it in place, so that should just hold that all there. And yeah, we'll do the same on the other side, and then we can start fixing things to the vehicle. Our shutter's assembled, and now it's time to start prepping the vehicle. First thing we're going to do is, this is the sports hoop that you get on the Wild Track and on the Platinum and so on, Wild Track X. We need to seal these front corners. We want to make sure that this shutter is as watertight as possible. Most people know that all roller shutters are never going to be 100% waterproof, but with a careful bit of thought when you're doing the installation, just taking that little bit of extra time, you really can make sure that this is as waterproof as possible. So in the front corners here, it's a little bit difficult with this one because being a DV8 special, everything's painted black, so hopefully this will show up okay. What I'm going to do is, just using some clear sealant, silicone sealant, I'm going to feed it into this little slot here and try and fill up the bottom of this foot, and then run a bead across there. And then what we're going to do is put the foam across the front and butt it up to our sealant to make a nice watertight corner there. So this is just a universal general purpose clear sealant, fairly thin nozzle, and I'm just going to stick it into that gap there and pump some into that hole until it starts coming out at the bottom, and then we'll run a bead along the bottom edge there. Then just smooth that off so it's nice and neat, and do the same on the other side. And then we're going to put our neoprene foam, stick it to this surface, butt it up tight against that bit of sealant, and that'll just stop any water creeping in this corner. So once the seal is in place, we've got this is the thick foam that comes in your kit. It's longer than we need, so we're going to have to cut it to length. It's very straightforward. Basically peel backing off and then push it tight into the silicone sealant in the corner, and then run the foam flush with this edge of the bulkhead panel on the truck. We're going to run that all the way across, take the backing off altogether, run that nice and neat. If you get it wrong, just lift it up, run that all the way along the front, and as you can see, we've got some excess there. So just with a pair of scissors, we're going to cut that off long enough to push up tight in that gap. So I always cut it just slightly too long so you can bend it back like that, push it into that corner, flatten it down, and that'll stick nicely on there. So now we've got our seal all the way across, silicone in the corners. That's going to give us the best possible seal. We've also got that flap that I showed you earlier when we were assembling the shutter, and that's going to drop down here. It's actually going to shield all of this from water anyway. So any water that runs down in between the cab and this sports hoop is simply just going to run straight down and drain out of the bottom of the truck. So the drain pipes in our kit, we've got two smaller rubber pipes. These are the rear ones, so for the tailgate end. Then we've got some larger plastic ones. Now we are looking to replace these and use rubber pipes all round. So if you're watching this video in a few months, you might find that actually they're all rubber, but they will be smaller and larger. So the larger ones go at this end, at the canister end, and the smaller ones are going to go down the tailgate end. And for these, what we need to do is drill some holes in the liner. We don't need to drill the truck on this one in particular, because what happens is we're going to drill the liner, the water will run behind the liner, and in the floor of the truck there are holes which the water will then run out of, so we don't need to worry about drilling through the vehicle as such. If your truck doesn't have a plastic bed liner such as this, it may have no liner, in which case I strongly recommend you get a liner. Eagle 4x4, good place to start. Or you may have a spray-in liner. The drilling positions are basically the same for the rear ones. If you've got a spray-in liner, I'll show you in a second where to drill for the front ones. It will be slightly different to when you've got a plastic liner. Plastic liner is much easier to do, obviously, but both are pretty straightforward. So, starting at the tailgate end then, at the rear, there's no precise measurement for this, so don't stress over it. I'm going to use a step drill. These rear pipes are about 20 mil. So if you haven't got a step drill, you could use a 20 mil hole saw. Okay, and we're going to drill in this part here. So just taking a line from this screw here and just going back ever so slightly, probably 10 mil, 15 mil back from there, and probably about 20 mil from this angle piece here. We're just going to drill a hole. Start off with the drill at 90 degrees to this surface, but once you've pierced the surface, I tend to bring the drill up to a vertical position. It gives you a nice kind of oval hole which the pipe sits lovely into. So what you don't want to do is drill too high up here, because behind here is actual bodywork and you don't want to be drilling into that. There's a cavity here between the bed liner and the body, and that's where we want to drill into. So, and we're going to drill that out to the size for the pipe, and then we're going to slot our pipe in. And at this point what we're going to do is push the pipe all the way down to the bottom. The pipes are plenty long enough, so we're going to trim these off, push it all the way down to the bottom, and then we're going to cut that off around about here, because it's going to attach to the side rails just underneath here. But we'll leave that like that for now, and we'll drill the other side in exactly the same position. So just spotting that like that. If you are using a step drill, just go steady. It's only a plastic liner. You could end up going way too far through. Just pop that pipe in there, right the way down to the bottom. And now, for the front ones, these plastic pipes, you're going to have to drill a slightly larger hole. If you've got a plastic liner, we're just going to drill it here at the front of the wheel arch. Again, don't come too far back, so the wheel arch itself, the metal wheel arch, kind of stops around about here. So we've got a cavity behind here. So what I'm going to do is just in this sort of corner piece here, pop the drill in, and drill a hole probably slightly bigger than that. And then we're going to pop our drain pipe into there. Push it as far as you can, as long as it goes through by at least, say, I don't know, a foot. You know that's going to run off safely. You can leave that like that for now, and again we can either cut that off. It's going to attach to the canister under here. We can either cut it off short, or we can just keep pushing it through. Gravity will take the water away, no problem. Again, same on this side. Just going through with our step drill. Pop the drain pipe in, and just leave it there for now. Now, if you haven't got a plastic bed liner, you are going to have to drill through the actual bodywork, and you won't have anything there to drill through because there's nothing behind that. So what you're going to do is drill your hole around about here. Now, you'll need to drill at that angle, not that angle. If you go pointing towards the cab, you're going to end up hitting the back of the cab. So what you want to do is drill a hole through there. For the rear ones, it's the same position, but it's actually through the metalwork. But for the front ones, you need to go through around about here. As part of the installation, there's a rubber flap on the side rails that sits on top of this sports hoop. It's the plastic part running along the bed here. And what we're going to do at this tailgate end is part of that flap is going to tug underneath this foot for the side rail. So what we need to do underneath here, there are 2 silver nuts which you need a 13mm socket on. You can either, I'm going to be lazy and use an impact driver, but if you haven't got an impact driver, just get a ratchet under there with a deep socket, and you'll see under here that there's 2 nuts, one there, hopefully you can see those, it's not easy to film, and one there. And I'm just going to slacken those off. We don't need to take the nuts off. I'm literally just going to pop the gun on and just slacken that nut off. And that one. So we slacken those 2 nuts off, and now if you look up at the side rail here, we're able to just lift that foot up slightly, and that enables us to tuck the rubber under there, making a nice neat job. I'll show you how that's done when we get to that stage of the process. But the next job, once we've done that, is to start fitting our brackets on. So I've got a packet of brackets here. There's 6 brackets in here and a bag of nuts and bolts. I'm just going to explain these brackets to you. So these brackets are basically going to fit onto the holes that are already in the bed, like this. And there are 3 down each side, but they're all slightly different. It's not easy to see this, but you've got that one's obvious. You've got a long bracket there. Then you've got one that's shorter and one that's even shorter on that leg. The top surface is the same, but on there you can see you've got 3 different lengths. And the middle one goes at the back. The short one goes in the middle, and the long one is going to go at the front. But the long one is the one that we don't fix to the vehicle at this point. We have to get the shutter onto the vehicle before we fix that one into place. But the other 2 we can now start to install on the vehicle. So taking these 2 brackets then, as I say, the middle length bracket is going to go at the back here. Now this is a black truck, so it's not the easiest one to show you on here, but you'll if you look at your truck, you'll see. I'm going to make life easy and just tip out all these nuts and bolts into the load bed here, just so I can access them easy. And at this point, we're going to attach these brackets without fully tightening them up. So we take a bolt, a spring washer and a washer. And on the other side, we're going to have one of these aero nuts and a washer. So I'm going to take my middle length bracket. It's quite confusing because the middle length one doesn't go in the middle. The middle length one goes at the tailgate end. So this is the right-hand side of the vehicle. And all we're going to do at the moment is take there are 3 holes here. Hopefully you can see those, but if you can't, there's 3 holes there. We're going to take the 2 rearmost holes, and we're just going to loosely attach this bracket onto the 2 rearmost holes. So again, bolt, spring washer and washer on the bracket side, and then on the back side we're going to use just a washer and one of the aero nuts, and we're going to do that up just by our fingers. It needs to still be loose because it will need to be adjusted up and down. So taking another one, bolt, spring washer, washer, and then a nut and washer for the back. We're going to pop that through there and just tighten that up finger tight. So that should still have room to move up and down, so that when we fit the shutter on, we can adjust the height. And then if I just slide forward a bit, we're going to take our shortest length bracket. So we're looking at this leg here with the 2 slotted holes in. This is where the difference in the length is. We're going to take the shortest one, and it's going to go into these 2 holes in the middle, just forward of the bed lights. You've got 2 holes here. So again, I am just going to take a bolt, washer, spring washer, nut washer, and I'm going to loosely attach this bracket, and bear in mind we're looking at the right hand side of the vehicle now, into the middle here and those 2 holes. You can't go wrong. The holes line up perfectly. And put the other bolt in there. Don't forget to use your spring washers. We don't want anything coming loose. So again, fix that through there. Oh, if I can get it through the hole. I'm most struggling there. Being a bit cack-handed there. It's a bit tight. There we go. And again, at this stage, you're not tightening these up fully. You need to have a degree of movement in those brackets. So shortest length bracket goes in the middle of the truck. Middle length bracket goes at the back of the truck. And by the back, I mean the tailgate end. And then what we're going to do, once we've got the cover in place, our front bracket is going to go like that. And the reason this is so long is because with an electric shutter, the canister comes a little bit too far back for you to actually be able to put one here. So we've got this extended bracket, and that will go like that. So I've put the brackets in place now on both sides, and you can see I've left them loose. The next job we're going to do is, I've got a puller cable here. This is just a piece of domestic flex. I need to push it through here, drop it down inside the body of the load bed, so that I can then, when we've routed our wiring loom through, we can pull it back up through here. So this is literally, you could use anything for this. If you've got, you can join long cable ties together, a piece of string, whatever. A piece of string is probably a bit awkward because it's too soft. This is quite a stiff cable. This is very simple. I'm going to show you where it's going to come out, but for now, what we're going to do is take this cable and up inside here, we're just going to push that through there, and you'll find that it just drops down like this. So feed a fair bit through there, and then we're going to go and fetch the other end from down outside the vehicle, and that will enable us then to attach our wiring loom to. Once we've routed the wiring loom, it's going to come up back through that hole, and then we're going to plug it into our canister when it's all in place. So push the puller cable through, and then I'll show you now where that's going to come out on the outside of the vehicle. The puller cable is running, where we pushed it through that front corner, it's running down here, and we're just going to reach up here and grab that cable and just pull it out so it's hanging down there. We're going to leave that there now until we've routed our cable from the battery. It's going to come underneath the chassis, along the chassis, sorry, and the plug's going to be here. We're going to tie it to that with some tape, and then we'll pull it back up through there. It's nice and easy, and then it's ready to plug in. This is the wiring loom that comes with the kit. Simple 2-core cable, inline fuse, 2 eyelets on the one end, they're going to attach to the battery, and then a plug on the other end, which we're going to feed down through here, and then we're going to cable tie it neatly along the chassis, and that's going to come out where our puller cable is. So the first thing to do, I'll just pop those cable ties there for a second. Okay, unravel the cable. Ideally, just iron out a few of these kinks. It just makes it easier to feed down. Just straighten this end up. So we're going to feed the plug end down. So you've got the white plug on the end, not the 2 ring terminals. And what we're going to do is, if you lean over the bonnet here, you'll see there's quite a big cavity in this area down here. And we're going to drop the cable down there, then we're going to get underneath, pull it through, make sure we've got enough cable, and we're going to cable tie it neatly into this bay, connect it up to the battery, and then we're going to tie it up to our puller cable. So, for the moment, all I'm doing, just dropping that plug down there. And then when I've got enough of that through, what I'll do is I'll come around the side here, and I'm going to get underneath, grab that cable and pull some of that through, just so that we've got enough pulled through to make sure we've got plenty to fix on. So lying under here, I can simply just reach up, grab my cable, and for the moment, all I'm going to do, just pull it through till those ring terminals end up close to the engine bay. And we'll come back to the rest of this cable in a minute. Let's slide out from here. And then we've got, on these new Rangers, it's great because they've got a bus bar for the positive terminals, and we're going to connect the earth onto here. So the earth is our black cable, the red is our positive cable. We can use any of these here. I'm going to use this one on the end here. I'm going to get a nut, which is a 6mm nut, which we don't provide in the kit. If you don't have one available, an M6 nut, just slacken this one off. So this is the second one along. Take the nut off, drop your connector on there, and that's your positive done. It's a good idea at this point just to take the fuse out of this inline fuse holder just while we're connecting this up. We don't want any shortages. So just pop that safely somewhere, and I'm going to go and get some tools to stick a nut on there and connect these up. So to do our connections, just to repeat, I've taken the fuse out of the inline fuse holder. Just for the moment, it's a good practice. You've got a bus bar here. I've got an M6 nut, so I'm going to use this. This is M5. This is M6. I'm going to use this terminal here on our positive bus bar. You know it's the positive. It's got a big red cross on it. So slide that over there. Wind on this M6 nut onto that stud. I'm going to wind that down as far as I can by hand, and then I'm just going to get a 10mm ratchet and just tighten that nice and tight onto that connection there on the bus bar, and that's our positive connection done. See why that won't go down? I'll route that down there, clip that cover back over, and then we're going to connect our earth terminal, our black, to the negative terminal on the battery. So again, 10mm socket, just slacken that nut off, wind it off with your fingers, take your black cable, slide it over, slide the ring terminal over there, pop the nut back on, and tighten that up. So we've now just got to tidy up these cables so that they're nicely routed. Number one priority is to keep them away from sources of heat and obviously sources of movement, such as the prop shaft, suspension, body mountings, etc. But first of all, in this engine bay, I'm going to start off by cable tying this along to this cable that runs along the left wing here near the battery. So grab some cable ties, tie it up. We'll try and keep these nice and neat. Oops, just got my inline fuse a bit tangled there. There we go. Wait. So there's a cable here. I'll just prop that cable, tie that onto there. Hopefully you can see that okay. It's a bit dark in here, being a black truck. Everything's very black. Obviously, the more cable ties you use, the better. So keeps it nice and neat. And we'll come along and snip these off once we're happy. And then along the firewall here, there's a nice cable there to tie onto. And we'll just connect that on there. And then that is going to run down, that cable's running down there. We'll go underneath, pull the rest of it through so that we know we've got enough cable to run all the way to the roller shutter at the back. And then what we're going to do is cable tie that up along the chassis leg so that it comes out where our cable puller is between the cab and the load bed. So I'm going to get underneath now and tie that up. Okay, so you can see the cable coming down here from the engine bay. We're going to route this back, but we want to tie it up as best as we can, so to keep it away from anything moving. Now this is going to be really awkward to film, so I apologize if this doesn't quite work out. But there are plenty of pipes, cables, all sorts of things here to cable tie this to. So what you want to do is make sure you've pulled all of the cable down from the engine bay, so it's nice and tight but not too tight, because you don't want to stretch the cable. And we're going to start cable tying it along the way. I may not be able to demonstrate every single cable tie on this video because it's a bit awkward, because I'm not on a ramp, I'm lying on the floor. Here, hopefully you can see this strut. We need to go over the top of that. You don't want any cable poking out. And then you've got a bash plate. We're going to go over the top of that. And then there's another strut. And we're just going to feed that cable back through there so that it's out of the way of the prop shaft and the exhaust and any sources of heat or movement. And then what we're going to do is cable tie this along the way, right the way down as far as we can towards the AdBlue tank. And then from here, we'll take it round to the outside of the chassis so that we can then meet up with our puller cable. So I'm going to put a few cable ties on here now. I probably won't show you me fitting them all because A, that's very boring, and B, it's pretty awkward to film. So I'm just going to pop a few ties on here as we go along. Obviously, the more ties you use, the better. So here we've got this big electric cable with the orange tape around it underneath the chassis. Obviously, we're on the left-hand side of the vehicle here. I'm just going to tie these up. I'll snip the ends off in a minute. Don't need to show you that on camera, but I will do it, I promise. Pop this through, tie it to this cable that's wrapped in orange tape. And then when you get to the back of this cable, or as far back as you can get, what we're going to do is pop our loom over the top of the chassis. Again, very difficult to show on the camera, but we'll do our best. So just going to pull that over the top of the chassis and pull it down like this, making sure it's not caught on anything. We'll come along and snip these off in a sec. So now that I've brought that cable over to the sort of top side of the chassis, I'm now right at the back of where the side step is, and on top of the chassis you'll find a pipe. Just wrap your cable tie around there, nice and neat, pull it tight, slide that cable tie back as far as you can go, and then now we're going to meet up with our puller cable on the plug. So I'm going to slide out from underneath here, and I'm going to show you how we connect that up, and then we're going to pull this puller cable. This is my puller cable. My plug from my loom is going to be attached to that, and I'm going to pull that up through that wing and into the load bed. Okay, so the cable's routed down the chassis now. There's the plug. This is our puller cable. What I'm going to do is just wrap some tape around this to attach it to that puller cable. I'm just using some insulating tape, PVC insulating tape. You can use what you like. And then what I'm going to do is come round to the back of the truck here, jump back in, and you can see our puller cable here. So now I should be able to just pull that back through, going gently, and there's our plug. So we can now just take this tape off, if I can find the end of it. There it is. And that's our connection now that will go into the socket on the roller shutter. So we're pretty much ready to put the roller shutter on now. I'm just going to cut these drain pipes that we fitted earlier. I'm going to get some scissors and cut those down because they're just going to get in the way when I lift the roller shutter onto the vehicle. The vehicle's ready. All our brackets are in place. Our drain pipes are in place. The electric cable is connected to the battery and has been routed along our chassis. We've now got to get the shutter onto the vehicle. Now, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm fitting these day in, day out. I've developed a bit of a technique for this. What I'm going to suggest is that you use 2 people because it is quite heavy, it's quite an awkward shape, and if you're not careful, you may end up dropping it and scratching the vehicle. I don't want to do that. hopefully I won't, especially not on film. But I would suggest you use 2 people. Now, it's important, this side flap of rubber here at the front here needs to be lifted up, because that goes inside of the sports hoop, which I'll just show you over here. So that piece of rubber is going to sit on top of this plastic, and then it's going to transition from horizontal to vertical where the side rail meets the main body of the hoop. So what you need to do is tape that rubber seal up so that when you lift it in, it sits tight against here, creating a good seal. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. If we just go back round to the shutter. So to get this seal up when we're lifting the cover on, I'm just going to use some 2-inch masking tape. Just tear a strip off like that. And about 25mm, 30mm back from the front edge, I'm just going to lip that over there and tape it to the canister lid. It's just holding that in that vertical position so that when I slide this cover in, it'll be in the right place and we're going to ensure a good seal. So I'm going to do that on both sides before I lift the cover in. So taped up both sides, I'm now going to lift this into the bed. As I say, it's probably easier with 2 of you to lift one on each side, lift the cover in, slide it in there and drop it down. For me, first of all, I'm on my own. The only other person here is holding the camera and I need him to do that. So I'm going to do this on my own. First thing I'm going to do is just lift it onto the tailgate. I can't lift it all the way in one go. So I'm just going to pick it up like this and just rest it carefully on the tailgate. Bit of an angle so I can get up there and stand up on here. Now, when I lift this shutter in, I have to make sure that I'm not too high, because obviously this hoop narrows, it tapers inwards. If you go too high, you're going to scratch this. And of course, being a DV8 truck, this has been painted black. I don't want to be the one that scratches this. So I'm going to gently lift this in, keeping it the top of the cover at about this height. Then put it in and drop it down onto our foam seal at the front. I need to make sure that that rubber flap at the front is pulled out so that it lips over the front of the load bed. You don't want to sandwich that rubber flap between the canister and the foam. I'll show you how to do that in a second. So with 2 of you, you'd stand either side, lift it in. I'm going to try this on my own. This is how I normally do them. We'll get it into place. So I'm just going to come back here. And I bend over, grab the shutter, lift it up nice and balanced, and then I'm going to slide the shutter in like this, and I'm going to drop it down onto that. And if you can come around here, Ben, you can see now that my rubber seal is pointing upwards and not downwards. And I can take this tape and just very gently work it out of that hole so my seal now sits nice and flat against the sports hoop there. So the shutter's in place now. As I explained, it's important to make sure that front flap now goes over the front of the load bed. If when you've sat this on there, you find that it's tucked under the canister, just put your knee underneath, lift the canister up, grab the seal, pull it out, drop it over the front. Creates a really good seal that, so it's important to get that right. I'm going to see if we can show you, but this rubber seal now is hooked right over the front of the load bed, protecting that whole area. So excellent bit of kit that, unique to the Eagle 4x4 Next Gen Ranger shutter. So now what we're going to do, if you come to the back of the truck here, probably easiest to do this from the inside. Just going to shut the tailgate, and we're going to line the shutter up in its fore and aft position. And to do that, hopefully Ben can show you this on top. There's a line here in the tailgate, and what we want to do is just make sure that the back edge of this rail lines up with the top of this sloping piece here. If we go too far back, This is all going to sit too high and it's not going to work properly. If we go too far forward, you're going to find that the shutter's not going to seal properly. The rubber seal on the back edge of the shutter will sit on top of this flat surface here. So lining that up there is what we want. And in a minute, we're going to tuck this rubber underneath the foot, which I explained earlier to you. So it's going to end up like that. But before we do that, we need to put our T-nuts into the rail so that we can attach them to these brackets. So I'm just going to pull that out for a second. And I'm going to grab my T-nuts. I'll just drop the tailgate down for the moment just so that you can see better. But it's important when you tighten these brackets up that you have the tailgate shut so that you maintain the right height for the shutter. So, in this bag here, we've got our T-nuts, and we've got our studs and some nuts. I'm going to put these on the opposite side to where I put the rest of the fixing so I don't confuse them, because the washers are, although the nuts are the same, the washers are a slightly different size. So this is what a T-nut looks like. It's a black square of metal with a, very difficult to see for you there, but there's a T shape in the top of here, and that's going to slide into the channel under here. So we take our stud, and with it, in one end there is an Allen socket, and in the other end it's flat. We're going to put the flat end into the T. So the T will be pointing downwards, so it's going to slide in like that. So slide in like that, and we need two of these on each side at this point. There will be a third one, but at the moment we're just going to put these two in loosely. And to do that, we've got to lift this rail up. And then at the front here, there is a hole in the channel that you can push the nut up into and then slide it along. I'm going to slide that one all the way to this rear bracket and drop it through the slotted hole in the top of the bracket. Now normally, as I say, I'd be doing this with the tailgate shut, but it's just easier for me to film with it open for now. I'm going to do the same for that middle bracket. So now we've got our two studs in there, and we can just tighten those up to locate them. You can use that little black Allen key, but honestly, as long as you do them up finger tight, they won't move. So we've lined up our shutter fore and aft, we've put our studs in and our T-nuts. Now we can tuck this piece of rubber underneath that foot. So just lift the foot up. It might be a bit stiffer than that. Give it a good yank. Hold that plastic base down. Pull that up. Tuck that rubber underneath. Nice and neat. And then the foot's going to go down and we'll tighten up those nuts that we undid earlier. So now that we've got our rubber tucked underneath here, our studs poking through, and our fore and aft position is correct on the tailgate here. I've had to shut the tailgate again because I want to use that to get the height for the shutter. So taking the nut and one of the washers from the bag that had the T-nuts in, we're going to fit a nut and washer onto that stud, and we're going to wind that up and do the same on the middle bracket here. Okay, and the next step is to tighten this nut on the vertical stud fully. So the first thing to do is to tighten up this nut. We're doing this with the back of the side rail resting on the tailgate so that we know we've got our height right. So I'm going to take a 10mm socket on a ratchet, and I'm just going to tighten that up. Nice and tight, not over tight, but just nice and tight. And then now that what that's done is it's pulled this bracket up, so we know that this is in the right position. So we can take a 5mm Allen key. You can use the one that comes with the kit, or in my case, I'm going to use one on a ratchet. We've got our 10mm spanner that came with the kit. Put that on the nuts behind, and we're going to tighten these up now. So that bracket is now nice and tight, and I'm going to do the same with the middle one. I'm going to go back to my 10mm socket, tighten up the nut that's coming down with the T-nut, from the T-nut I should say. and that's lifting that bracket into the right position. Tighten that up. Swap over to my Allen headed socket, 10mm spanner on the back, and I'm going to tighten those up. Tighten both those up again, only hand tight. I don't mean hand tight, I mean, you know what I mean. Just tighten it up like that, and that's those two done. So I'm going to do the same on the other side, and then we're going to come back and we'll fit our third bracket. These are slightly more awkward because it's not quite so easy to get to the holes. It's going to be really difficult to film this well because obviously on a black truck we're going into this sort of dark corner here. Basically that bracket is going to fit in the same way as these into existing holes, and it's going to sit like this. So I'm going to take one of my T-nuts that we talked about earlier. Just going to assemble that, and I'm going to slide that into there, and then we're going to take this bracket with one of the bolts, spring washers and washers that we used on the other brackets. I'm just going to slide that into there, and you'll find it's the very first hole. Very awkward to show you this, but you will find, see, it's actually even hard for me to see because it's so dark. Pop that T-nut back in, that's just popped out. I cannot find that hole, there we go. And then I'm going to take a nut and a washer, pop that on the back. I'm probably making this look really awkward because I'm doing it to help Ben, doing it at an angle that helps Ben film it. And I'm just going to take one of the nuts and washers from the T-nut pack and just pop it onto that T-nut so the bracket doesn't drop off. And then we've got to get the other bolt up through here. Now, it looks like there's no room here, but actually down the side of the canister there is a bit more room, so you can reach up, pop that bolt through like that, pop the nut on the back, just put your finger over the end of it. And what you want to do with these, because it's very difficult to get the Allen key into, is tighten those up as tight as you can with your hand. And then we're going to tighten up that top, this one first, again, same as we did on the others. So I'll tighten that up. And then it's very difficult to get the Allen key in there. In fact, you almost can't, hence the reason they supply the spanner. These use aero nuts which actually grip themselves. So if you just pop your finger on the end of the bolt, you can actually just tighten this up from the nut side without everything spinning around. So just tighten that up till it's nice and tight. Same on the other one. And once you've got those two tightened up, that's that bracket in place. Go over to the other side and do the same. So we've got our 6 clamps in place, our 6 brackets rather. I've also connected the drain pipes. You can see there with the Jubilee clip at the top. I've done that on the rear ones, and I've also done that on the front ones, which may be more difficult for you to see. But I don't need to show you how to do up a Jubilee clip. If you've got this far, you know how to do up a Jubilee clip. Okay, so we've got our cable poking through, which we pulled through from underneath. We tied along the chassis. We're going to plug that into the roller shutter now. Okay, we've got a bit of excess cable here. I recommend you tidy that up. What I do is I just fold it in half, and in between this bash plate and the canister, there's a slot, there's a cavity there. Just feed that into there, makes it look nice and neat, no cable showing. And we're pretty much there. So the only thing we need to do now, we've got the shutter at the moment is still free to roll manually, okay? To engage the electric motor, we need to turn this nut here. What this does, disengages and engages the motor, okay? When it just turns like a quarter turn, so we're going to turn it, I think it's anti-clockwise to engage the motor. Once I've done that, I won't be able to move this shutter. So I'm going to get a 14mm socket. You can either use a 6mm Allen key through the hole in the middle, or you can use a 14mm socket. You don't even need a ratchet. You can literally just turn it by hand, hold the socket, turn it, quarter turn to the left, and then this will be fully engaged, and we can then test the electrics on it. We've got a 14mm socket, pop it over there, turn it to the left. It's literally a quarter turn. And now when I try and move this, the shutter is fully locked in place. That means the electric motor is engaged. I'm going to pop the fuse back in because we took the fuse out of the inline fuse holder. We can't test this until we put that back in. So I'm going to do that up. One thing I didn't mention is that obviously once I'd got my rubber trapped back under this rail, we tightened up the 2 nuts that we undid at the start of the video. Okay, so we're done. Now all we've got to do is test it. We've fitted everything. Brackets are on, drain pipes are in, everything's tightened up, cables tucked away, motor is engaged, and now we can test it. So, in the kit here, you've got 2 key fobs, and on there you've got 4 buttons. This one is the opening button, the top one, closing, stop. You can stop this shutter in any position, and then we've also got a light switch here. Now the light comes on and off automatically. Whenever you operate the shutter, the light will come on and off, but there may be times when you want to turn it on its own. You just press that button and the light comes on. Okay, so I'm going to close the shutter now and just check everything runs smoothly. And we press the close button on there, and you can see the shutter moving nice and smooth, and that'll stop when it gets to the back. You don't need to press the stop button, it stops automatically. And then what we can do is just close up our tailgate, and you can see that that shuts nicely against the seal there, creates a really nice seal on these Ford Rangers. With this shutter, you don't need to open the shutter to drop the tailgate. You can just drop it down on its own, and that's maybe a circumstance in which you want to use the manual light switch if you just wanted to grab something out of the back here. But you can open and close the shutter whether the tailgate is up or down. So from that position there, I can open the shutter. I can stop it anywhere I like, and when it's stopped, it's locked into place. It won't move. Okay, so it's effectively locked. So if you had a tall box at the back, you could bring the shutter up against it, stop it, it would hold that box in place. When it comes back, if we've got the tailgate up, the shutter will nicely just lip over that top of that tailgate, creating a nice seal. And that is the job done. Now, this is quite a lengthy video. It takes ages to film these things. To give you an idea, this takes normally around about an hour to install. Hopefully you've not been put off by this video. Remember, this electric roller shutter is available from nextgenranger.co.uk, which is Eagle 4x4's dedicated Ford Ranger website. Lots of accessories on there. Drop us a like on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. We're going to put many more videos up showing a lot of new products on the Ranger. Big thanks to Fred at DVA Works for allowing us to use his workshop. Got to say, it's a lot nicer than ours, but you know, we're very grateful to him, and they do a lot of fantastic work here, converting Rangers, converting Range Rovers, all sorts of vehicles. They've got a fantastic Series 2 classic Land Rover here, another Ranger over there waiting to be converted. DVA Works is part of 4x4 Tyres. They do some fantastic wheels and tyre packages for any 4x4. Strongly recommend them, and thanks again to Fred for letting us use his fantastic workshop.